ever feel like you're on a treadmill? You know, working hard but getting nowhere. Like you're chasing someone else's version of success. This deep dive might just help you jump off and find your own path.
Okay.
We're cracking open chapter 10 of this transurfing book.
Right.
And it's all about discovering your true goals.
Yeah.
Not the ones society, or as the author puts it, those pesky pendulums try to impose on us.
It's fascinating how this chapter flips the script on traditional goal setting.
Right.
Instead of just setting a goal and charging ahead, it's about first making sure you're even on the right path.
Okay.
The one that truly resonates with your soul.
Right. And it uses this super relatable analogy of clothes shopping.
Yeah.
Have you ever bought something because it looked amazing on someone else?
No, yeah.
Only to get home and feel like you were playing dress up in someone else's life?
That's exactly what this chapter wants you to avoid. It's about tuning into that gut feeling of, this is so me.
Right.
Or this just feels off.
Yeah.
Even with something as simple as a shirt or a pair of shoes.
Okay, so how do we translate that feeling to something bigger?
Yeah.
Like a life goal?
The chapter calls this identifying your things, those things that just click with your essence. It's not about overthinking or making pro-con lists.
Okay.
It's about that immediate resonance, like recognizing a familiar melody.
It's almost like that spark joy concept.
Exactly.
But applied to every area of your life.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. The author says, and I quote, "If you have to convince yourself to have something, it's not yours." Wow. So if you're constantly justifying a goal, maybe it's time to ask if it's truly coming from within.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Right.
It's like if it's truly your goal, it should feel like a natural extension of yourself.
Yeah.
Not something you have to force.
Right.
Okay.
And this leads to the distinction the author makes between a trendsetter and an imitator. We often get caught up in these pendulum swings of trends and societal expectations.
Right.
Chasing what's fashionable instead of what feels authentically right for us.
It's like we're trying to fit into a mold that wasn't made for us instead of rocking our own unique style.
And the chapter argues that true elegance comes from that individuality, from owning your choices, even if they're totally off trend.
Right.
Think about someone whose style you admire. It's probably not just about the clothes themselves, but how they own their look.
Totally. It's the confidence that comes from being true to yourself.
Yes.
But how do we apply that same confidence to our goals?
Right.
How do we know if we're on the right path?
Yeah.
Or if we've been swept up by someone else's agenda?
Well, the chapter introduces this idea of the soul's frail.
Okay.
Which sounds kind of mystical.
Right.
But it's essentially your unique energetic blueprint.
Okay.
Imagine it like a map with a true lifeline running through it.
So it's like each of us has this internal compass guiding us towards our most fulfilling path.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The author argues that true happiness isn't about overcoming obstacle after obstacle. It's about being on the right path in the first place.
So we could be crushing it in a career, checking off all the boxes.
Right.
But if it's not aligned with our soul's frail,
exactly,
it won't lead to that deep sense of satisfaction.
Exactly. And this is where those pendulums come back in.
Yeah.
They're like these energy forces that feed off our misaligned desires, trying to keep us on their track, not ours.
Right.
They love to dangle those shiny foreign goals in front of us.
Okay.
The ones that look impressive but leave us feeling empty inside.
Okay, so how do we spot these foreign goals before we waste years chasing them?
The chapter gives us some really clear signs to watch out for.
Okay.
Foreign goals often feel like an obligation, like you're constantly having to push yourself to keep going.
Right.
There's a sense of punishment, a lack of that natural flow.
So if it's truly your goal, it shouldn't feel like you're dragging yourself across the finish line.
Right.
It should feel more like even the challenges are part of the adventure.
Exactly. And another red flag is that foreign goals often play on our desire for external validation.
Okay.
They're presented as prestigious or fashionable.
Yeah.
Like they're the key to fitting in or impressing others.
It's like we're chasing the Instagram-worthy life instead of the one that actually lights us up from the inside.
And those foreign goals often come with this unattainable quality.
Yeah.
Like we get so focused on the scarcity or difficulty that we miss the bigger question of whether it's even something we truly desire.
It's like we get more excited about the chase than the actual destination.
Right. And that can lead to a cycle of constant striving and never feeling satisfied. So it's important to ask yourself, do I genuinely want this, or am I just chasing the feeling of wanting it?
That's such a good question to reflect on.
Right.
Are there any other red flags we should be aware of?
Another big one is when a goal is imposed by others.
Right.
It could be pressure from our parents' peers, or even those societal shoulds that get ingrained in our subconscious.
It's like we're living out someone else's script instead of writing our own story.
Exactly. The chapter really emphasizes that you and only you have the right to define your goal.
Mm-hmm.
It has to come from that authentic place within.
Okay, last but not least, what's the final red flag we should be on the lookout for?
The chapter says that foreign goals often serve someone else's well-being more than our own.
Okay.
It could be a job where we're constantly putting everyone else's needs before our own.
Right.
Or a relationship where we're sacrificing our happiness to please the other person.
So if a goal isn't ultimately contributing to your overall well-being and sense of fulfillment,
Right.
it might be time to reevaluate whether it's truly aligned with your path.
Exactly. And that feeling of swimming upstream you mentioned earlier,
Right.
that's often a big crew that we're trying to force something that's not meant for us.
Wow, this is already giving me so much to think about. It's
Yeah.
like we spend so much time figuring out the how-to of achieving our goals that we forget to ask the more fundamental question of, is this even the right goal for me?
And that's what's so brilliant about this chapter.
Right.
It gives us the tools to break free from that pendulum influence
Okay.
and start discovering those true goals that are waiting to be unlocked.
This is definitely resonating with me. I've definitely had those moments of feeling like I was on the wrong track,
Yeah.
pushing and pushing, but not getting anywhere.
Right.
So now that we've identified the problem of those foreign goals,
Yes.
how do we actually start uncovering the ones that are truly ours?
That's where the real adventure begins.
Okay.
And luckily, this chapter has some pretty amazing advice on how to break free from those external influences and start tapping into your own inner compass.
This is getting really exciting. But I have to admit, I'm also a little scared to let go of those familiar goals,
Right.
even if they weren't truly mine.
Yeah, I understand.
It's like stepping into the unknown.
I understand that feeling completely. But trust me, the chapter offers some incredibly practical and empowering tools to navigate that uncertainty
Okay.
and the rewards of living a life aligned with your true purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just say it's worth taking the leap of faith.
You've convinced me. I'm ready to dive into those tools and start unlocking my true potential.
Great. Let's get started.
Okay.
One of the first things the chapter challenges is this idea of blindly following those calls to help others before we've even figured out our own path.
That's interesting because we're often told that helping others is the key to happiness.
Right, and there's definitely truth to that.
Yeah.
But the chapter suggests that if we haven't addressed our own spiritual emptiness, so to speak,
Okay.
our attempts to help others might just be a way of masking that emptiness
Oh.
rather than coming from a genuine desire to contribute.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper wound instead of actually addressing the root cause.
Exactly. And the chapter connects this to how those pendulums can exploit our desire to help, subtly manipulating us into fighting their battles.
Do you have an example of that? I'm having trouble picturing it.
Sure. The chapter uses the example of war protests.
Okay.
It suggests that both sides of a conflict can be manipulated by these pendulums, each believing they're fighting for a righteous cause, but ultimately just feeding the pendulum's need for energy and conflict.
That's a powerful example.
Right.
So before we jump into saving the world,
Yeah.
we need to make sure we're coming from a place of wholeness and alignment ourselves.
Exactly. The chapter really emphasizes self-care as the foundation for true helpfulness.
Right.
It's like the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Okay, so we've talked about avoiding those sneaky foreign goals.
Right.
And making sure we're taking care of ourselves first.
Yeah.
But how do we actually start discovering those true goals that are aligned with our soul's purpose?
Well, the chapter offers some very clear instructions on how to define a goal.
Okay.
That's not just a fleeting desire or a should,
Mm-hmm.
but something that brings lasting joy and fulfillment.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes. Give me the blueprint.
The first step is to start with a general area of interest.
Okay.
It could be something like comfort, well-being, creativity, adventure,
Mm-hmm.
or anything that genuinely sparks your curiosity.
Right.
Then you can start getting more specific from there.
So it's like narrowing down our focus.
Right.
Like using a funnel to get from a broad idea to a more defined goal.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really fun.
Okay.
The chapter encourages us to dream big,
Okay.
to let go of limitations and really explore those things that light us up
Yeah.
without censoring ourselves.
I love that. No more playing small or dimming our shine to fit in.
Right. And the chapter even offers some playful what-if suggestions to spark our imagination.
Okay.
Like, if you want a nice house, what about a mansion?
Right.
If you want a good job, what about being the CEO?
I see what they're doing there. It's
Yeah.
about expanding our vision of what's possible.
Right.
And not limiting ourselves based on what we think is realistic or achievable.
Precisely. It's about tapping into that childlike sense of wonder and possibility.
Okay.
And they connect this back to the clothes shopping analogy.
Yeah.
Like, finding the perfect outfit your goal should feel like it was made for you.
I love that. It should feel aligned, effortless, joyful.
Yes.
Like you could slip into it and instantly feel at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, once you've identified a goal that resonates with that deep inner yes,
Right.
the next step is finding the right door,
Okay.
the path that leads to that goal.
Okay. I'm intrigued by this door analogy. What are the potential pitfalls we need to avoid?
Well, the chapter highlights how choosing the wrong door can lead to exhaustion, burnout,
Yeah.
and even closed doors at crucial moments.
Oh.
It's like we're putting in a ton of effort, but hitting dead ends every step of the way.
So how do we know if we're choosing the right door, the one that aligns with our true path?
Yeah.
It's like, are there any secret signs or codes we need to look for?
Well, the chapter says those sneaky pendulums can disguise the right door as something insignificant or foolish.
Okay.
It might not look like the obvious or smart choice from an outsider's perspective.
So something that might seem silly or unimportant to others could actually be our unique path to success.
Exactly.
It's like the more unconventional or out there it seems,
Right.
the more likely it is to be the right door.
Exactly. And that's why trusting your inner guidance is so important.
Right.
The chapter emphasizes asking yourself, does this path energize me or drain me? Does it feel like I'm moving towards something that lights me up, or am I forcing myself to fit into a mold that doesn't quite fit?
That's a great question to ask ourselves.
Right.
It's about paying attention to our energy levels
Mm.
and emotional state as we're engaged in a particular activity or pursuing a certain path.
Precisely. And it's about being willing to step outside of our comfort zone
Hi.
and explore those things that might seem unconventional or even a little bit scary.
Okay, so we've defined our goal,
Mhm.
found our door, and we're feeling energized and excited about the journey ahead.
Yes.
But how do we actually make it all happen?
Okay.
How do we translate that excitement into tangible results?
That's where the concept of intention comes in.
Okay.
And the chapter defines intention in a really unique way.
Okay.
One that goes beyond just setting an intention and hoping for the best.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this special type of intention.
The chapter describes intention as being purified of desire and importance.
Wow.
It's about releasing that desperate grasping or need for control
Mm-hmm.
and trusting that the universe, or outer intention, as the chapter calls it,
Okay.
is working in harmony with your desires.
That sounds a little paradoxical.
Yeah.
How can we have an intention without any desire or importance attached to it?
It's not about suppressing desire or becoming indifferent,
Okay.
but rather about shifting from a place of forceful striving
Yeah.
to a state of relaxed focus and trust.
So it's like setting the intention and then letting go of the outcome.
Exactly.
Trusting that the right steps will be revealed along the way.
Exactly. And to illustrate this concept of effortless action,
Okay.
the chapter uses a really memorable analogy, the act of getting the mail.
Okay.
It says, and I quote, "Stop imagining the post to be a problem and simply put one foot in front of the other in the direction of the letterbox. Do not think about the problem. Act, create momentum, irrespective of how things might turn out, and then the problem will be resolved in the process."
I love that analogy.
Right.
It's so simple yet so profound.
Yeah.
It's about taking action without overthinking it.
Uh-huh.
Trusting that the path will unfold as we move forward.
Precisely. And the chapter goes on to distinguish between inner intention,
Okay.
which can be forceful and controlling, and
Mhm.
outer intention, which is about aligning with the natural flow of the universe.
So it's not about forcing things to happen,
Right.
but rather about aligning ourselves with the path of least resistance.
Exactly. And this leads into the concept of visualizing success. The chapter suggests creating a target slide in our minds,
Mhm.
a vivid mental image of our desired outcome,
Okay.
but without getting caught up in the details of how we'll get there.
So it's like creating a mental snapshot of our desired outcome,
Right.
almost like a scene from a movie.
Yeah.
And then allowing the universe to fill in the missing scenes.
Exactly. And the chapter emphasizes that we shouldn't try to force belief or exclude negative thoughts.
Right.
Acceptance is key.
Okay.
It even suggests visualizing the current link in the chain of events,
Okay.
like a mother watching her child grow, celebrating each small step along the way, trusting that the journey is unfolding perfectly.
That's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Right.
But what about when those inevitable setbacks and challenges arise?
Right.
How do we stay aligned with our intention when things don't go according to plan?
That's a great question, and one that the chapter addresses directly.
All right, I'm ready to hear the wisdom on navigating those inevitable bumps in the road.
Well, the chapter reframes setbacks as part of the journey, not failures.
So it's about shifting our perspective from seeing challenges as roadblocks to seeing them as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. It's about adopting a growth mindset, seeing those challenges as feedback that can help us course correct and fine-tune our approach. And the chapter suggests that getting upset only feeds those pendulums we talked about earlier, throwing us off balance and delaying our progress.
So it's about maintaining a positive attitude even when things get tough.
Yes.
And trusting that every challenge is ultimately leading us towards our desired outcome.
Precisely. And the chapter offers some really practical advice on how to maintain that sense of inner balance, even in the face of adversity.
Okay.
But before we dive into those techniques, I think it's time to shift gears.
Okay.
And talk about what happens when we realize we're already pursuing a goal that doesn't feel quite right. One of those sneaky foreign goals we discussed earlier.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. I'm sure many of us have been in that situation feeling like we're on the wrong path, but unsure of how to course correct.
Yeah.
So what does the chapter say about those situations?
Right.
The game over? Or can we still find our way back to our true goals?
Well, the chapter acknowledges that we can achieve foreign goals.
Okay.
But it takes much more effort and impeccable transurfing.
So it's still possible,
yeah,
but it's not going to be as effortless and joyful as pursuing a goal that's truly aligned with our soul's purpose.
Exactly. It's like trying to swim upstream against a strong current.
Right.
You might eventually reach your destination, but it's going to take a lot more energy and effort than if you were flowing with the current.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
So even if we've already invested time and energy into a goal that turns out to be misaligned, it's not too late to course correct and start moving towards something that feels more authentic.
Absolutely. And the chapter encourages us to reduce importance and let go of control, even with those goals that haven't panned out the way we expected.
So even if we've experienced setbacks or failures, we can still use those experiences as valuable lessons and stepping stones on our journey towards finding our true path.
Exactly. And this brings us to a really crucial point, the importance of embracing failure.
Okay.
The chapter reminds us that everyone makes mistakes, and it's those mistakes that ultimately lead us to our true path.
It's like that saying, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward.
Absolutely. And the chapter encourages us to reframe failure as a learning opportunity, a chance to course correct and refine our approach. It's about shifting from a mindset of I've failed to a mindset of what can I learn from this experience?
So instead of beating ourselves up when things don't go as planned, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this?
Exactly.
How can I use this experience to move forward in a more aligned way?
Precisely. And it's about adopting a growth mindset, seeing challenges as opportunities for expansion and learning rather than setbacks.
Right.
It's about trusting that every experience, even the difficult ones, is ultimately serving our highest good.
That's such an empowering perspective.
Right.
Like, we can choose to see challenges as obstacles or as stepping stones.
Exactly. And that choice makes all the difference. It's about cultivating a sense of resilience and optimism, trusting that we have the inner strength to navigate any challenge that comes our way.
And the chapter also warns about those well-meaning advisors who try to steer us in directions that might not be right for us. It's like sometimes even those who care about us the most can unintentionally lead us astray.
That's so true. The chapter emphasizes that while it's helpful to get feedback and support, ultimately we are the only ones who truly know what's best for us. We have to trust our own inner compass and have the courage to wallow our own path, even when it differs from what others might expect of us.
It's about owning our choices and trusting that we have the wisdom and intuition to guide ourselves towards our most fulfilling life.
That's a really important point. It's this idea of not getting stuck in the mindset of all or nothing.
Right.
We can still be moving forward, even if it's not on the ideal path,
Yeah.
while simultaneously keeping our true goal in mind.
Okay.
It's like having one eye on the prize while still navigating the present.
Have you ever felt like that?
Oh, yeah.
Working towards something you're not totally passionate about
Uh-huh.
while that dream is still simmering in the back of your mind?
Absolutely. And the chapter suggests that outer intention will help us open unseen doors,
Right.
eventually allowing us to transition to a more aligned path.
Okay.
It's about trusting that the universe, or outer intention as it's called in this framework, is always working in our favor, even when things don't seem to be going our way.
It's like having faith that things will work out even if we can't see the whole picture yet.
Yeah.
But speaking of seeing things, the chapter uses the phrase morning stars to describe those subtle hints and opportunities
Yeah.
that might lead us toward our true paths.
Right.
Have you ever noticed those morning stars in your own life?
Yeah.
Those little nudges and synchronicities that seem to point you in a certain direction?
Definitely. And the chapter emphasizes that we have to be open to those nudges, even if they come in unexpected forms. It's about paying attention to those subtle signs, those whispers of intuition that might be guiding us towards something greater.
Sometimes it feels like those morning stars are almost testing us.
Yeah.
Like, are you paying attention?
Right.
Are you ready to follow your true path?
Exactly. And the chapter encourages us to embrace those tests.
Okay.
To trust that we have the inner strength and guidance to navigate any challenges that come our way.
It's about stepping into that unknown territory with a sense of curiosity and adventure.
Yes.
Knowing that even if we stumble,
Right.
we'll learn and grow along the way.
Absolutely. And speaking of stumbling, let's talk about a topic that often brings up a lot of fear and resistance.
Yeah.
Failure.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of failure, because I think a lot of us have a pretty negative association with that word.
Yeah.
It's like we're conditioned to believe that failure is something to be avoided at all costs.
And that's exactly what the chapter wants us to challenge.
Right.
It reframes failure as an essential part of the journey, not the end of the road. It's like those setbacks and challenges are actually signposts pointing us in the right direction.
So instead of viewing those moments as defeats,
Right?
we can see them as opportunities to learn, grow, and course correct.
Exactly.
It's like those moments where we feel like we've hit a wall are actually the universe's way of saying, hey, there's a better path over here.
Right.
Let's try this instead.
Exactly. And the chapter encourages us to embrace those detours and redirections, trusting that they're ultimately leading us toward our most fulfilling destination.
It's like the universe has our back, even when it feels like everything is falling apart.
Right. It's about trusting that there's a bigger plan unfolding, even if we can't see it from our current vantage point.
Okay.
And speaking of trusting the process, the chapter also warns about those well-meaning advisors who might try to steer us in directions that aren't truly aligned with our soul's purpose.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like those times when we get so much unsolicited advice from family, friends, or even those random people we meet at parties that we start to question our own intuition.
And that's exactly what the pendulums want. They thrive on that self-doubt and confusion, subtly manipulating us into following their agenda instead of our own.
So how do we navigate those situations where we're bombarded with conflicting advice and opinions?
Yeah.
How do we discern between those voices that are truly supportive and those that might be leading us astray?
That's where the importance of cultivating a strong inner compass comes in.
Okay.
The chapter emphasizes that while it's helpful to seek guidance and support,
ultimately, we are the only ones who truly know what's best for us.
Okay.
We have to trust our own inner voice and have the courage to follow our own path, even when it differs from what others might expect of us.
It's about having the confidence to say, thank you for your input, but I'm going to follow my own intuition on this one.
Exactly. It's about owning our choices and trusting that we have the wisdom and discernment to make the best decisions for ourselves.
And this ties back to the concept of reducing importance, right?
Yes.
If we're too attached to getting approval from others or following a prescribed path, we're giving our power away to those external influences.
Absolutely. It's about shifting from a mindset of, I need to please others, to a mindset of, I am worthy of following my own path, even if it's unconventional or unexpected.
Okay.
And the chapter suggests that when we truly embrace this mindset, we start attracting those people and opportunities that are aligned with our true purpose. It's like the universe is conspiring to support us when we have the courage to step into our authentic selves. Okay, this is all starting to come together. We've talked about identifying our true goals, finding the right doors, embracing failure, trusting our intuition, and having the courage to be ourselves.
Right.
It's like we're building a toolkit for creating a life that's truly aligned with our soul's purpose.
Exactly. And the chapter emphasizes that this is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's about constantly refining our understanding of ourselves, our goals, and the path that unfolds before us.
Right.
The more we embrace this journey of self-discovery, the more effortless and joyful it becomes. The chapter even suggests that living a life aligned with our true purpose can feel like one ongoing holiday.
Wow, that's a beautiful image. It's like when we're in alignment with our true selves, every day feels like a celebration.
Exactly. And you know what? This whole conversation is really making me think about how this chapter could be seen as a roadmap, not just for achieving goals, but for living a more fulfilling life overall.
I completely agree. The principles discussed here, like trusting your intuition, reducing importance, and embracing failure, can be applied to so many areas of life,
Right.
not just those huge, audacious goals we set for ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this chapter. It's not just about achieving external success.
Right.
It's about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace and fulfillment.
It's about creating a life that feels aligned with our true essence, a life that feels like a natural expression of who we are at our core. And you know what? This deep dive has really inspired me to take a closer look at my own goals
Yeah.
and make sure they're truly aligned with my heart's desires.
Okay.
I think it's time to do some soul searching and see what morning stars have been trying to get my attention.
That's fantastic. And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right away.
Right.
Just start by paying attention to those subtle nudges and whispers of intuition and trust that the path will unfold before you.